Is this working? Yes. So welcome to the side event that will focus on teaming up local and national climate action. This event is organized together with a national government, the Swedish government, and a local government network called Climate Alliance, and our Climate Alliance national coordination offices from Austria and from Italy. We are a network of cities, 1,700 cities, very committed to climate change. I'm very happy here to really team up with the national level to have a joint event. So we all know that the Global Climate Action Agenda is aiming at going from, let's say, the action of few to action of all, and looking into the partnerships and the more collaborative approaches between the parties, so the national governments and the different non-party stakeholders, including cities. At the same time, we also are here more in the European context, and this is also a very topical issue at the EU level, because we are talking about the governance structures. We are talking about how to better link up national climate and energy planning with local climate and energy plans. So this is our topic today. I would like to just launch the event immediately by inviting the State Secretary from Sweden, Eva Svedling, to give the opening and the welcoming address of the event.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you all for coming to this important event. I'm happy to see so many of you at this late hour. It's very clear to me that combating climate change requires a concerted and coordinated effort on all levels, from the global to the local. It requires mobilization of the entire society. Not least, it involves business. Most of the concrete work is done by municipalities and individuals. The local administrations are often responsible for the city planning, which is of great importance when more and more cities are being built during the next coming years. This rapid urbanization requires a huge demand for infrastructure in urban areas. According to the Global Commission of the Economy and Climate, urban infrastructure investment is expected to make up for roughly 2/3 of the total global investments in infrastructure to the year of 2020. According to the same commission, investing in public transport, building efficiency, and better waste management could save cities plenty of money based on energy savings alone. These investments will also reduce emissions and build resilience. The physical shape of the cities is of critical importance. Urban spread needs to be counteracted both in order to ensure an efficient, low carbon and sustainable infrastructure and to create attractive urban environments. Making our urban areas sustainable is an enormous challenge ahead of us. On that note, and with the aim of stimulating concrete projects on the local level, Sweden has introduced an investment program for local climate investments by publicly owned or private companies, local or regional authorities, organizations, and foundations. The government provides grants for local climate projects, grants covering parts of the expenses. Thanks to these grants, today the number of charging stations for electric vehicles have been doubled in a short time. Grants are today approved for almost 4,000 such stations, and this is only the beginning. At the same short time, the production capacity for biogas has increased by 20% as a result of support from a number of concrete local projects. Local authorities are, in addition, often responsible for a large part of the public procurement. They can use their purchasing power in order to support sustainable development. Municipalities, in particular large cities, can also contribute to a business climate that favors products and solutions that are low carbon. States, and for that matter, international organizations and institutions that are shaping the regulatory framework, such as the ones being negotiated here in Marrakesh, have the responsibility to create the conditions needed for ambitious action on the local level and in business. It is up to nations to identify and map the problem, to establish the necessary goals, to supervise the development, and to create necessary policies and measures. The Swedish experiences regarding policies and measures on the national level is very much related to the carbon tax that was introduced in our country as early as 1991. It's today about $125 per ton CO2. We're also working with the so-called green certificates, which are a system for energy producers. They are obliged to have a certain share of renewables in their mix, which corresponds to tradable certificates. Another example is waste. Waste is an important resource for the energy sector in Sweden. Almost all waste is burnt with energy recovery through this district heating or combined heat and power production. Policy measures that have supported this development are bans and landfilling and taxation of fossil fuels. This had a significant impact on the waste management in the municipalities. These are all examples of policies and measures on the national level that creates the basis for action on the local level and in companies. But states can do more. It's also possible for states to cooperate with municipalities and business on concrete projects, which the Swedish investment program that I just mentioned is an example of. And it is in this context, It's, however, necessary to put investment programs like the Swedish one, but also big funds like the Green Climate Fund, in a wider context. After all, the transformation needed in order to achieve a sustainable development must impact the direction of the large financial flows. In that context, the role of the Green Climate Fund, as well as the national climate investment programs like the Swedish, is to be catalytic, to influence the big flows of money, most of which it is within the public domain. And it is in this context about steering the big investment flows, cooperation between all levels of a society becomes particularly important. The recipients of money for investments are often actors operating on the local level, but part of much wider networks and the companies. They need to feel that the policies on climate change are consistent through all of its societies and on all levels. And it has to be consistent and long-term. When we achieve this, the signal to the financial system and to the business community becomes sufficiently strong. This signal should be very clear to all actors, not least the business and the future lay in the capacity to change and modernize, not least through innovation and implementation of new technologies. And the direction of this modernization is outlined in the goals that established in this process under the Climate Change Convention, but more in the Sustainable Development Goals. The aim is sustainable development in all dimensions: environment, social, and economic. We have an opportunity to achieve a good life for all people, but this can only be achieved through an economic and social development that respect the boundaries of this planet, deals with the current global environmental crisis, and addresses human rights and gender equality. In Sweden, we capture this holistic view in the overriding goal that Sweden shall become the fossil-free welfare nation. We want a welfare nation in all its aspects, but it shall be fossil free, because the future is fossil free, and the future has to be fossil free. And with those words, I look forward to listen and to hear about the perspective and experiences from all of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Svedling. We will now hear 3 examples from the local level. So we will get to hearing of on one hand, what has already been put in place by the cities that are presented here, but also some reflection on how the collaboration with the national government is organized, and maybe some recommendations of how this collaboration could be even further enhanced. So I'd like to first invite Mr. Andreas Wolter from Cologne, the Deputy Mayor from Cologne, to start the local examples.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Mrs. Svetting, I'm very happy that State Secretary joins this panel here. Thank you for being here, as well as my colleagues from Sweden, Luxembourg, and Denmark. And it's a great honor for me to function as an ambassador for the Climate Alliance and to represent the city of Cologne here at the COP22 in Marrakesh. I would like to thank the Fossil Fuel Free Sweden initiative for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you about combating climate change and a sustainable city development. For Cologne, combating climate change is a sustainable city development, and they are very close linked to each other. The city of Cologne is committed to very strict climate protection goals. Until 2020, we want to reduce our emissions by at least 20%. And you have to know the background of Cologne. Our population is rising around about 20% from 2000 to 2020. In 2050, Germany is formally bound to the target to reduce emissions by 80 to 95%. These goals are not as ambitious as those of the Fossil Fuel Free Sweden initiative. Nevertheless, to achieve this, Germany needs drastic change in all areas of daily life. The main tool to reduce emissions in Cologne and on the local level is the implementation of sustainable city development. All the way until the 1980s, a car-friendly city was in the focus of the administration in Cologne. Public space was mainly analyzed with an aim to foster individual traffic. Today, human well-being together with a sustainable city development is in the center of discussion. And I think so that Cologne isn't alone with this fact in Germany, but I think on most of the European cities. Consequently, Cologne has the aim to increase eco-mobility up to 66% until the year 2030. I mentioned the population is growing now from 1 million to 1,200,000 in the next 10 years. So this is not only improving human well-being, but it's also reducing carbon dioxide emissions and improving the air quality in the very densely populated city center of Cologne. To achieve this goal, high investments are needed to improve public transportation and to extend bike lanes. You know, the city of Cologne is 2,000 years old, and we can't widen up our roads. So we have to ban cars out of our city, and that is a big discussion in Cologne. If we want to give the bikers more space, as well as the people who are going barefoot in our cities. It's only sometimes 60 centimeters for the foot walkers, and we have 4 or 5 meters for the cars, and there's additional there are parking lots on the sides. But cities alone do not have the necessary financial resources to expand public transportation as it's needed. Investments from higher ranking political levels are required. Eco-mobility must be a main priority to the Federal Republic and the European Union. Further, the city of Cologne is at the moment implementing different development projects which should offer additional housing in a fast-growing city. These projects try to combine sophisticated housing technologies to reduce individual energy consumption with advanced information technologies. One of our projects, our lighthouse projects, is a Grow Smarter project, which we conduct in cooperation with our friends in the Stockholm Town Hall. In Cologne, the Grow Smarter project is governed under the umbrella of the Smart City Cologne initiative, which was launched a few years ago. Smart City Cologne is a platform where companies, universities, and individuals can promote new technologies, concepts, and ideas which help reducing carbon dioxide emissions and to improve life in Cologne. Further, Cologne is boosting its worldwide reputation to be open-minded for new technologies and startup companies. The initiative is one of our great success stories of Cologne city development. And ladies and gentlemen, we need more decentralized cooperation between cities and regions. It's a key instrument of the new urban agenda of Habitat 3. European partners can learn a lot from other countries, from other cities, not only in Europe as well as in the global south, I think. And we benefit a lot from the peer-to-peer learning. Ladies and gentlemen, the work of a local city administration is strongly influenced by higher ranking political levels. In Germany, cities have a strong autonomy during the implementation of projects. However, the legal framework for the implementation process is mostly decided in Berlin or, in case of North Rhine-Westphalia, in the state capital in Düsseldorf. And mostly the money comes from there. That's sometimes all the big problems. So we have the financing is one of the biggest issues we have in Germany about those projects. As the area of work of a city are not just decided on a local level, of great importance is the assignment of mandatory tasks to cities by the federal level. In Germany, the mandatory tasks of a city connected to direct financial contribution by the federal state level. Unfortunately, climate protection is not a mandatory task of cities and not receiving any direct funding. Thus, cities need to find other forms of funding or need to take money from a mostly very tight city budget. It's absolutely necessary that Germany makes climate protection, that's also mitigation of climate change, in a mandatory task of cities, which is appointed with the necessary final resources. An important source of project funding is the European Union. The Horizon 2020 or other funds, such as the European Fund for Regional Development, are of great importance for cities. Still, it should be mentioned that applying for these funds comes along with a high level of bureaucracy, especially poor cities. And you must believe me, Germany has got a lot of poor cities, especially in the western side, side of the country. They do not have financial and human resources to invest into sometimes a very long and intensive application process. The Europeans should consider reforms which should reduce the application and the bureaucracy costs, especially poor cities which need additional funding could benefit from it. The influence of the European Union are the area of climate change and in general of its great importance. One of the main achievements of the European Union is connected to the energy efficiency standards and the general use consumption of resources. It's important that the European Union tries to increase energy efficiency standards. This allows us to improve the standards of living while energy consumption is reduced. These high standards must be part of an international agreement between our countries and the European Union. Europe would be able to export energy efficiency and help the world climate. I would like to thank at least again the Fossil Fuel Free Sweden initiative for the possibility to speak. I'm looking forward to an inspiring discussion with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas. I don't think we often hear cities asking for new tasks. So this was, I think, a request to the German ministry to consider making climate combating climate change and officially a task of cities. So that's an interesting request. I would now like to invite, go to Denmark, to Albertslund, and invite Sten Christiansen, the mayor of Albertslund, to give a short statement. And I would like you to please, if you could stick to 5 to 8 minutes so that we'll have time for discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the word. And I have no problem in doing it in 5 minutes, because I agree on a lot of the points that my German friend, my colleague from Köln, explained in his words to you. First of all, I would like to underline once again that the Paris 2022 agreement is very important. It's the first time that we have a so important climate agreement among nations in order to reduce global warming and in order to take steps towards the climate adoption. What is also important from the Paris 2022 agreement is the global climate action agenda decided, which was, I would like to say, a very important decision in order to make cities and use important players in order to combat climate changes. Now you could say, why is it so that cities are so important? Well, the first reason is that the cities can make action now, and we can make action now, and we are already doing it. Every day, cities around the world is taking action against climate change, actions in order to reduce CO2. And just to give you one example from my area, the city of Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, within the next 10 to 15 years are going to invest about 1.5 million euro in order to climate adapt. So that is something that politicians has to take decisions about, and not only the politicians of today, but also the politicians of tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. That's very important, and it's very important that we are very tough on that issue, because it has to be about the future. Now in Denmark, we have a very clearly decision of who is doing what. We have a great state program for the energy field. We know what the cities are going to, which charts, which tasks the cities should be working with. And you may know that within the energy supply sector, this is under public control, most of it, and that means that it's also controlled by the cities. So the cities are responsible for delivering water, for delivering district heating, for delivering effective waste way of handling waste for our citizens, and that is very important in order to have this agenda central on the agenda, have a central agenda in Denmark. Now, in my region, the capital region of Copenhagen, we have 29 cities, and the region has agreed that the electricity and the district heating supply should be carbon neutral by the end of 2035. Now, that is a very tough target, but that's also the way that we can move ourselves, we can move our citizens, and we can move our cities to take the actions that is needed. So the cities play a very important role in mobilizing, in asking our citizens and asking our businesses to take a part in the task of energy efficiency. So that is what we are working at the moment in the capital region, in my municipality, and the 28 other cities in the region of Copenhagen. Now, let me just shortly remind you about what's happened on the other side, so to say, this week in the United States. We all know that the current presidency of the United States have been very important in the COP22 negotiations. That's an example of a state that can make a difference. We also know that the European Union can make a difference and does make a difference. But it is also an example of that if we have to be sure that something happens, and that something happens, and the agenda is strongly confirmed in a way that the cities, in a way that we do deliver on the goals towards lowering the heating of our earth, then we have cities, we have national, local states has to play a very important role in achieving that. So that means now that after Obama, the big cities in the United States has to take over this agenda and deliver on this agenda. So when you look at this in a COP22 perspective, in a European perspective, and in an NGO perspective, it is now even more important that we work together and that we learn from each other and that we help each other to develop new solutions that can be available for the cities in the United States, because they have to be on board this issue in order to achieve our common goal. In 2017, it would be 30 years since Gro Harlem Brundtland delivered the report, the UN report, Our Common Future. And I think that should be a very, very good year to say to each other, we promise that we will deliver for the next 30 years, because in 2050, the last barrel of oil will be delivered from the Middle East. So at that time, we do have to have developed a new society which is based on renewable energies. So after COP22, we have a lot of work to do, and we must do it in common. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steen. And I think here it's really important indeed to take into account this, maybe it was raised already earlier, the importance of collaboration between cities. So I guess we all are very committed to collaborate from the European side, also with the US cities now, seeing where the developments are going. So I would like to go back now to Sweden, but for the local level. So I would like to invite Mr. Milano Pradovic, the Deputy Mayor from Malmö, to now to tell from the local perspective what's going on in Sweden.
Well, from a local perspective, politics to want, politics to venture. It's having the courage and the will to make a change. And in the city, we have the courage, we have the change, for will for change. So we set up high goals and long-term goals. And by doing that, you attract the best civil servants. And when you attract the best civil servants, you attract the companies, and then you attract the academy. By 2020, the municipality of Malmö will be climate neutral. And by 2030, the whole city will be fossil-free. In Malmö, we grow about 5,000 new civil citizens each year. And we decided to grow inside, to not grow out in the agricultural land. We'll grow inside and become a green, dense, innovative city. And then we often talk about smart city, and we talk about the cost. But the thing you should think about, what will it cost if we do nothing? And smart city is not always about the cost. Smart city is using ICT when you refurbish and build new houses. By combining IT, ventilation, heating, alarm system, then you can reduce the heating demand by 50% and the electricity demand by 25%. So why don't we do it? Smart is being able to use ICT to take a green wave for the public transport, to use applications so you can take the trip door from door within the city, combining rental bike sharing systems with bus public transport. But smart is also removing parking places and making bus lanes, special lanes for buses who can go through the city in a faster speed. In Malmö, we've implemented a new bus called the Super Bus, the Malmö Express, It's a gas electric hybrid. We have 10.6 kilometers separate bus lanes for that bus, which made the city more livable and more quiet, because we had moved about 2,700 cars in that street, increased the numbers of travelers with the bus with 43%. So we reduced the noise pollution and the air pollution and increased the quality of life. And you think about the cost as well. We have, looking at in our region, if we increase the numbers of travels making by bike to 24% in our region in Skåne, we will decrease the cost for healthcare with 1 billion crowns. And we know that from a scientist in Lund, if you take the bike for 1 kilometer, reduce the cost for society by 1.4 crowns. But if you take a car for 1 kilometer, you give a cost for the society by 1.5 crowns. So why don't you do it? And you can combine so many things. If you look at sustainability, it's about social, it's about economical, and about environmental. And you can't do anything without combining those three. In Malmö, we start working with economical, and then we started to work with environmental, because we had a lot an oil crisis, which made people leaving the city, and we had a high employment rate. But then we lacked out of social sustainability, but we've been working on that since a couple of years back. And I can take an example. We have an area in Malmö we haven't built anything for 37 years, and now we're building houses and parking area, removing parking places, building 4 houses. And at the same time, so we have social clause, which basically means we employ 25% of the people living in that area, so we get work opportunities. And we're working with high goals and long-term goals for the environmental issues as well. And we can see that the people in that area, they get more happier, the crime rate's going down, the school results is getting up, and the people not moving in and out from that area as they used to do. Early on, people left about 18% each year moving out and in from that area. Now it's down to 8%. And each time someone leave an apartment and move out, you have to refurbish that apartment for about 50 to 250,000 crowns. So actually, people who own the houses are gaining money by investing in social and economical and environmental sustainability. So you can see you can make a change and gain money as well. And we have calculated, we have about 7,700 apartments in that area. And if we refurbish those apartments, it will cost about 600 million to refurbish them in a standard way. But if we refurbish them with the highest goals in environmental issues, it will cost about 500 more millions to do that. But 500 million crowns, that was the cost to get people, 138 persons living outside the society, unemployment people, 138 people. If we give job to them, that's the same cost as refurbish those apartments in the best way. So it's not always thinking about the cost, it's thinking about how much it will cost if we don't do anything. Early on, we didn't have a government to reduce the money for the cities. We didn't get any support from the government, but now we have a government to support us, and we have a EU who support us, fairly. It's about fundings and so on, but they can do much more. What they can do is set higher goals when it comes to the environmental issues, because we can do so much. At the last COP, we talked about the 2 degrees goals, and that's too much. We have to go low, below 1.5, and we can do that. We have the solutions. It's time to start implementing the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I heard quite some positive feedback to the national government, so this sounds good. It's a shame that there's no one from the European Commission, because there we could have maybe continued the debate then. So I would like to now turn to the national level and start with Austria. So I would like to invite Mr. Günther Liebel. He's the Director General of the Environment and Climate Action Department of the Austrian Environment Minister. So please, the floor is yours.
Good evening, ladies. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks for the invitation to this side event. Austria, quite a small country in the center of Europe. Just to give you some very few figures, we have around 8.5 million inhabitants, and we have at the moment around 76 million tons greenhouse gas emissions. That means the average is around 9 tons per capita. Austria is affected by climate change quite rapidly because around two-thirds of Austria lies in the Alpine area. And since the last 40 years, the average temperature has raised more than 2 degrees. So when it was mentioned that we have to reduce our raising of the temperature, we feel it, we really need it. One solution is using renewable energy. The total share of renewable energy of the total energy consumption in Austria is now around 33%. That's quite good, but it's not enough. Around 75% of electricity comes from renewable energies due to the hydropower, wind power, solar energy, and so on. And if I can come back to this 9 tons per capita, what does this mean? Around 3 tons per capita comes from the industry. So the people are not really, cannot really do something to reduce 3%. That must be done by the industry. 6 tons per capita is in the field of transport, housing, agriculture, waste management, and so on. And the biggest driver for greenhouse gas emissions in Austria right now is the transport sector. In the non-emission sector, 45% of the total emissions comes from the transport sector. Only 15% comes from the agriculture, 15% come from the housing sector. So the really main goal of all the politics which we have to provide for the future is to reduce emissions in the transport sector. It's not so easy because this is really what the people feel, what they are doing every day. Yeah, they are using the cars, they are using all the transport systems on the way to the school, to the job. Austria is a country where a lot of goods are transported north, south, east, west, transit country. Nevertheless, we have the problem of climate change. We have no CO2 tax as it is in Sweden. But what we tried is we try to involve, of course, the people and the regions to come up with their own ideas and really to get all the ideas, all the positive momentum which are in the regions, which are in the communities, to stimulate the whole process, because the government can, of course, come up with legal proposals, government come up with tax proposals, but if the people are not involved, if the people are not engaged, if they don't understand what's going on, if they don't understand the need to do it, then it's not easy for politics. So we started just a few years ago an initiative which is called Climate and Energy Model Regions. That means that we want to stimulate these ideas, and if it works, no. Sorry. Okay.
Let's escape first.
Okay.
I won't charge you.
This one? Thanks. This is a program which the Austrian Climate and Energy Fund started, and it supports the regions to become independent of fossil fuels. It's clearly a bottom-up approach. The region themselves should develop their own way towards reducing energy consumption and of course, raising renewable energies. We also want to increase the public identification to really involve all the stakeholders, all the political parties, all the people living there through a clear participation process. And one of these effects is quite important for these smaller regions, for these smaller communities, that we could create new jobs in the regions. You see here the map of Austria, and the blue colored are these so-called climate and energy model regions. We have already now 99. They have to apply to become such a regions. 99 communities are now involved. And in this total area, about 2.5 million citizens are living there. To become a member in this group of model regions is you have to apply to become one of these 99 or 100 model regions. You have to send a concept. What do you want to implement within the next years? You have to bring a clear concept how you want to involve all the stakeholders. And what you get from the federal level is, of course, a little bit of money. We pay a so-called manager for this region. And the only job of this manager is to work with the community, to work with the region, to help implementing the plan in reducing using fossil fuels. These plans are for about 3 years, and then all these plans are evaluated. And if there's really progress, then they can continue in this work. They get additional money, and of course they are awarded, and all the things you all know. But I think the most important thing is that the work with the stakeholders, the work with the local economy. We try to involve all the smaller companies, and of course the politician. It's awareness raising, and what we're also doing is we are training these managers, and they have to come together 3 times a year. They are trained in motivating. They are trained in giving facts, of course, because politics should be based on facts. And all these smaller communities have to have an energy monitoring. This is a must for all these communities being part in this model region community. They are obliged to have their own energy monitoring in the region, in the community, and to help them to implement their regional plans. There is some, let's say, seed money. We gave some investment grants for photovoltaic systems in the community, for wood pellets heating systems, for solar thermal energy. And as I mentioned before, one of the most important things is to get involved in the traffic system. We are also supporting electric vehicles, and as it was mentioned before, subsidies for refurbishment of buildings. This is the concept we started 5 or 6 years ago. The results are really quite good, because we could involve a lot of people. We could involve a lot of local politicians. We could involve a lot of local small enterprises, um, and due to the fact that they really have to apply with a strategic plan which they have to write before, they are really engaged and they are willing to fulfill what they want to do in a region. And due to these positive effects, we want to continue this process of working with regions, working with communities, working with small cities. Um, and we think it could be a good model also for other countries in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liebel. So we heard earlier about the city of Cologne. So I'm going back to Germany now, and I would like to invite Dr. Vera Rodenhoff, the head of division of international affairs from the German Ministry of Environment and Buildings, to maybe also already reflect on what some things that Andreas Walter was saying earlier. So please, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. And I will, of course, reflect on that. Also, thank you for inviting me. And fossil fuel free Sweden is a great idea. We are working on Germany, and we will be there by 2022. But I think we still have a way to go for a fossil free Germany, especially since we're phasing out nuclear. But we intend to be by minus 55% of our greenhouse gas emissions by in 2030, as compared to 19. Almost no greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. So I think the topic of having talking on especially the multi-level governance is of great importance when we talk about climate action. And yes, one reason is certainly, or one example is certainly what has happened in the United States. And there, I think it's important to work with the cities, but not only the national level and the cities, but certainly all the subnational levels in between. And this, of course, goes for all other countries as well. We all know that without action at all possible levels, we cannot reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. These are climate goals, but it's also crucial to achieve the goals set out in the Agenda 2030, thus the Sustainable Development Goals. They also contain a climate goal, but they also have clean, renewable and access goals for energy, and goals for livable cities. And all these also turn around, and clean air is one aspect, and health. So all that turns around also limiting greenhouse gas emissions in cities. To be able to capitalize on that, we need to work together, and local governments need to be equipped with decision-making power, capabilities, knowledge, as well as finance. Now, we've heard about the problems of German cities, or supposed problems of German cities with finance, and I am, of course, aware that there are financial shortages in many German cities, and they should be equipped definitely with more funding to also implement climate action. On the other hand, I look around this room. It's a very white room, and we are only here with Europeans. And if we look at the world as a whole, then German cities fare rather well. I'm not saying that it's perfect and nothing more needs to be done. I just think you have to put things into perspective. And thereby, I think that the finances that German cities have are actually pretty good. So they have a share, they get a share of the taxes, business taxes, some taxes for when you buy properties. They can fix their own levies. Most countries in the world don't have these powers, and they just don't have access to finance. Nonetheless, and another thing is, I heard that you suggested that it should be made mandatory for German cities to take climate action. Well, personally, I do agree. And you made that suggestion surely because then there would be the money for it. And in the German constitution, there is the principle of subsidiarity, and there's also the sort of the self-government autonomy of municipalities is enshrined in that constitution. That means that the municipalities should have the power to take their own decisions on what to act upon. So it's, I think there is a bit of a struggle between wanting to have really good climate action and giving the autonomy to take the decisions on what to prioritize. But as I said, personally, I think obviously it would be good to tell cities to take climate action, but then also cities would be dependent maybe on the national governments and the laws that are passed there. And we just, at the outset, also heard that it's good if cities are autonomous because then they can actually make their own policies. And these policies can be much more ambitious than what the national or or the federal or provincial level asks them to do. So it's a difficult, it's a bit of a conundrum there. So in Germany, we have this constitutional principle. I already laid out what finances cities, or for some examples of the finances cities have access to. And of course, we from the federal level do have some programs with which we support cities in taking climate action. We have the municipality guidance, the Kommunalrichtlinie, and in that we have a national climate initiative, and thereby certain master plan communities can apply for funding if they adhere to 90% the goal of reducing their greenhouse gases by 95%, or becoming 100% renewable energy regions. And quite a few cities are taking advantage of this. And then the instruments laid out there are somewhat actually similar to what you've described. We also have climate change managers, and there's capacity building and different programs for increasing the energy efficiency or having LED street lighting and things like that. So there is that program on top of it. And then also we have the International Climate Change Initiative, and in that we support action in partner countries, climate action, and we also support with, of course, the agreement of the partner country action in cities. And there, for an example, with China, we have a project where we support new energy demonstration cities and drawing up their climate plans, doing the whole monitoring on what kind of energy actually they are consuming, and where they would have to make cuts or increase efficiency, or where they could use renewable energy. And of course, we have many more projects for that. So overall, this is just a big rally for increasing the governance from the local, the federal, state, or provincial level, and the national level. And it's not just about providing funding, but it's about cooperating and coordinating. So when climate plans are drawn up at the national level, for example, the local level should definitely be heard. This was, for example, the case in our long-term climate strategy, our Klimaschutzplan, that we are drafting and hopefully able to present here next week. And also there, the municipalities, they were heard in the process and could make several suggestions. So this, in the hope that this, what is laid out there, is more feasible for them to implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and excellent. That already started, I think, the debate in a very nice way. Also, thanks for still highlighting the importance of course, of including all the levels of government, which is very, of course, essential if you want to do long-term planning and if you want to really achieve those ambitious targets. So that's very, very important. I would now like to invite Andre Weidenhaupt, who is the Director General from the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Infrastructure from Luxembourg.
Thank you very, yes, it was. Thank you very much for the kind introduction and good evening, everybody. I think it's getting later and later. And for this reason, I have also prepared some slides because sometimes it's easier to keep awake looking at slides, or it's even more boring. So I'm bringing a few introductory words with respect to Luxembourg prior to go into one program that we have launched together with the municipalities. So for those that would not know Luxembourg, it's a very small country in Western Europe. With respect to inhabitants, overnight there are 560,000, and during the day there are an addition of 160,000 transporter commuters, and that's one of Luxembourg's climate issues as well. Overall CO2 emissions were at 8.7 million tons of CO2 in 2015. The surface of Luxembourg is 2,500 square kilometers, and it is squeezed between Belgium in the west and in the north, Germany in the east, and France in south. With respect to the CO2 emissions, 68% come from transport. So basically we face similar problems than those that had been described by Austria and also those that have been described by the cities. So it's basically a larger urban area, so to say. I'm excusing a little bit when I'm looking to the Luxembourgers in the room, because there are some that do not come from the urbanized areas, but still it's very urbanized, and that's one of the challenges. We think at government level that municipalities play a very important role when it comes to climate change and when it comes to climate action, and this both when it comes to climate change mitigation, but also when it comes to adaptation, because municipalities are those that at the local level will put into practice renewable energies. They will be those that put into practice in their own buildings energy efficiency. They are the actors when it comes to public transport or when it comes to transport systems, and they are also the actors when it comes to put into place green infrastructure that tackles the challenges of climate change adaptation. So I think municipalities are very important, and let's say, in relation to Germany, Luxembourg has less levels. So we have basically only 2 levels, whereas Germany has the federal, the Länder level, as has Austria as well, and the municipal level. So in Luxembourg, there are only 105 municipalities and the national government. So that's basically as it is. And as compared to Germany, municipalities are as autonomous as they are in Germany. That's also fixed in the Luxembourgish constitution. We have put in place, and if I say we have even the author of this concept in our room. That was the former Environment Minister, Marco Schank. We have, let's say, thought, how could we stimulate a program that would even have municipalities even more engaged? So we have put in place a legal framework for what we call the Climate Pact. And the Climate Pact is a voluntary contract between the government, municipalities, and then an institutional body that is called My Energy, who is, let's say, who are the facilitators that help municipalities that do what in climate negotiations would be called capacity building. So municipalities, the government, all have obligations. And next click. So for instance, government comes with financial support and technical assistance. Municipalities implement the European Energy Award scheme. That's a voluntary act by measures, and then they get, let's say, awarded, and they will also get assessed in order on how performant they are. In order to do so, they also have to implement an energy management system, and My Energy does project management and quality assurance as a whole, and provides technical support to the municipality. So we put into place a legal framework in 2012 by the loi du 13 septembre 2012 portant création d'un pacte climat avec les communes. Participation is voluntary. In my next slide, but not already yet, you will see that the voluntary act was very successful. And it is up to the municipalities, because of the autonomy of the municipalities, to decide whether to join in or not to join in. And this can be done between January 21st, 1st of January 2013 and end of December 2020. When they join in, they are offered by the government financial and technical support, and they can either participate individually or in a regional collaboration. Some key facts. So this chart shows the map of Luxembourg with the 105 municipalities, and even though this is voluntary, we got almost all municipalities that bought in. There's one, let's say, to the very northern part. For those that know Luxembourg, if I would say Weiswamper, or I would say if you would drive north from Luxembourg to Aachen or to St. Vith, you would, and if I would after that let you guess what municipality it was, you would win this bet. So out of these 104 that are members, already 76 have been certified by the standard, and then we have different, let's say, schemes in order on how efficient you are. So 14 have already reached the 40% of achievement. 58 have already reached 50% of what they needed to do, and 4 have already achieved the gold standard. We have, as a whole, 32 climate consultants that consult these municipalities, and 73% of the municipalities are certified. Next slide, please. So some practical examples in this respect. So there's a setup of a climate team after having signed the Climate Pact contract, in order that it comes on ground, but it is a very bottom-up approach, obviously. Climate advisors are assigned to the municipalities to guide the municipalities, and then the European Energy Award scheme is being implemented in order to check the performances. So this process is a quality management system supporting municipalities that intend to contribute to sustainable energy policy and urban development through energy efficiency and an increased use of renewable energy sources. So this European Energy Award, you might be familiar with it because it was on the compact of Covenant of Mayors Sustainable Energy Award what is it called? I don't recall the abbreviation anymore. It's not that, but that's not the important issue on that.
Sustainable
It's
Energy Action Plan, I think.
yeah, Sustainable Energy Action Plan. Thanks. It's an instrument for steering and controlling communal energy and climate protection policy in order to review systematically all energy-related activities. It's a bottom-up approach, as I have as described already, because it has been developed by municipalities and we adopted it to the Luxembourgish frameworks. Basically, we give financial support, so all municipalities that have joined get financial support by both in let's say in two ways. They get basic subsidies, and in relation to their performance level, in relation to the EEA, they get additional bonus amounts, and that attracted the municipalities. So it's a little bit money makes the world go round, so to say. And they also get technical support. So the climate advisors are financed also by government. The process-related tools were all financed by the government. The energy management software, EnerCoach, were the development was financed by the government, and we also financed the help desk that is provided by My Energy, this institutional body I already mentioned. So that was what we put into place in order to have the local level somehow, or to put some attractions to the local level to be in. And with all these concepts, Luxembourg has also joined the Under 2 MOU that was launched by several regions all over the world. And my relation to the new geopolitical situation, California is also a member of the Under 2 MOU, as is also the land of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you needed some more insights in this, so feel free to contact me after the side event.
Thank you, Andre. Now I have some questions for the panel, but as we only have about 20 minutes time, I would like to give the floor to anyone who wants to raise a question at this point. Yes. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Jay Manning, and I'm here representing the states of California, Oregon, and Washington, and the province of British Columbia. Together, they form the Pacific Coast Collaborative. They have a partnership with the cities of Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, BC. Very similar to what you're working on. And one, I want to say I'm very impressed by everything I heard. You guys are really leading the world in this effort, and it's great. We'd like to think we are too. And I think a suggestion I have is we consider getting together, having information exchange. What we're learning is there are certain things only the states can do. There's certain things only the cities can do. And then the states can create, unwittingly or not, barriers for the cities. And so there's just a great amount of information exchange that's super helpful. So that's my first suggestion. And secondly, it's a little bit off topic for what you're working on, but several of you are as dependent on your coastlines and your marine resources as we are. And so the PCC launched a month ago the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification. It's a similar idea to get states, provinces, cities, nations, First Nations tribes together, just like we have on climate, to do the same thing on ocean acidification. I have a two-pager here I would love to share with you, and we could have that conversation as we talk about comparing notes on how we're doing and how you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent first concrete outcome of the event, also for us in terms of collaboration. Any other questions in the room? Okay, many. So maybe I'll
I have a reflection about the panel, because we from City kept quite time.
Yeah.
We get our 5 minutes and then we have to react on the national level. As you can see, we in the cities, we talk about solutions. When we come to the national level, they talk about problems, not possibilities. And that's what I'm talking about earlier on, the will and courage. We have that in the city, but the lack out in the national level. I have to reflect on something. And they talk about the problem with transport. And we have the solutions. You can narrow down the streets. You can make more public bus lanes. You can make more bicycle lanes. You can calculate the trip from door to door and make it more difficult to use the car within the city. Then you will change the behavior of people. Then you will see it's easier to take the bike. It's easier to take the public transport. But if you say we have a habit in the city, we have the habit in our land that people use the car. We had the same problem in our city, but we looked at what's best for the citizens, what's best for the children. What kind of problem do we have? We have noise pollution. More people die due from noise pollution than from traffic accidents. We can see that, and we have a problem with speed kills. If you get hit by a car on 50, 9 of 10 dies. But if you reduce the speed to 40, 3 or 4 dies. So if you can reduce the speed when you're crossing a street for children, make it safe for the children, you make it safe for everyone. And it all comes down to quality of life. So you have to see the possibilities and not just the problem. And we talked about our country, like Germany said, our country do quite a lot, we're quite good. Well, Malmö is a good city, Sweden is a good country, but we're small. 99.87% of the population lives outside Sweden. They don't care about what we say, but they look at what we do, and then they take after us, because climate change don't see any borders. So we have to work with other countries and other projects around the world. So we have to be forerunners so we can see and show people what they really can do, and then they take after us. So I get a bit annoyed when we always look at the problems and not the possibilities. So I just have to react on that. So that's done.
Excellent. That's very important to keep the optimism indeed, that we are not only talking about the problems. I think Ms. Wedling would like to react to this.
I just wanted to make a short comment to the suggestion, because I think it's a very good initiative. I think we need that kind of initiatives more than ever now, to get together and discuss how the agenda forward must be, and to collect all the good initiatives and examples, and to go forward with the progressive initiatives and nations and states within the United States as well, and Europe and the EU, and see what new collaborations and cooperations we can have for the future.
And maybe a message to take also from what the Deputy Mayor was saying on the transport aspects of the Fossil-Free Sweden initiative, and how can you further support and maybe bring the example of Malmö to other cities in Sweden. Maybe just one question before to the floor as well still.
Thank you. Well, I will somehow repeat the words of my colleagues from the Pacific Coalition that just left. I'm John Franca, Project Manager of Regions Adapt. Congratulations for all of your excellent work. As he said, we would like to work closer with you to have a joint effort and explore some synergies. And for now, apart from congratulating you all, I'd like to hear more about the importance of this multi-level integration, about the 3 levels, local, regional, and national, for climate action. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so adaptation was also mentioned by some of the panelists. So that's, of course, also an important topic to discuss. Any other reactions from the city level now after listening to the national representatives?
No, I'm just happy that the Swedish government is setting up high goals and long-term goals, so they can encourage people and make them work even harder, so that attracts companies to our country. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Well, that actually links quite well on the ongoing process, for example, in Austria, on the national climate plan that has been under development. So maybe you could also say some words about your climate and energy strategy, and tell some words still about the process and how you are linking further in this context, when you are doing strategic development, how you are linking with the local and regional level.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a few words. I think that Austria is doing now the same as all the other countries in the world or all the other countries in Europe to come up with a strategic plan for the future, because we all signed, we ratified Paris. That means we have to take care about 2030, we have to take care about 2050. This strategic goal is quite important in politics, because before we just had the European goals with 2020 and all the things, and now we have a worldwide. What we started right now is to debate and then to adopt a so-called integrated energy and climate strategy till 2030 with a view to 2050, where this process is now underway. We have on the federal level 4 ministries involved: our ministry, Ministry for Environment, Ministry for Transport, Ministry for Social Affairs, because you have to, of course, to include also all these problems, and of course Ministry for Energy and Economics. These 4 ministries are now trying to come up with a strategic plan. We started a broad consultation for the public with internet and all the things, and after this process, which has been finished, this consultative process with the public, we now try to get these really on the ground. It will be not so easy. We have heard about the problems our German colleagues had to pass through the government climate action plan. It's now on the way. And what one part is, of course, to involve the local governments, to involve in Austria the Länder, because they have quite a lot of competences, and of course all the NGOs, because all these processes must be driven from the bottom, and I can't guarantee that we will finalize this plan within the next 6 months, but we are hoping to get this and to pass this strategic plan also to the House of Parliament, so that then we have really till 2030 a clear perspective how we could fulfill the targets for the Paris Agreement.
Okay, thank you. Maybe from the German side, you also were nodding. You want to add something still on this and on the German plan and how the issues that have been coming up in this development process?
Sure. So we have 2 German plans, in fact. One for putting the climate goals for 2020. That was the climate action plan, and it has clear targets and also measures in it. And the second thing you were referring to, and our so-called mid-century strategies that all of the countries party to the Paris Agreement have to deliver by 2020. We started that exercise, I think, I don't know, 1.5, 2 years ago. And it was a long process. Our ministry drafted it, and then there were several rounds of consultation with NGOs, with business and other stakeholders, with municipalities, and obviously we also consulted our federal states, and then there were hearings, and also there was the possibility to submit proposals, and they were all taken on board and looked at. And sometimes discussed in the hearings, and then the plan was drawn up, and there was a a consultation process with all ministries involved in the plan. And what's really, in a way, new about this plan, and also a bit not part of the Paris process up to now, is that we have to look at all the sectors of our society and economies. And so up till now, it was always the energy sector that was looked at mostly. But this exercise has to involve the transport sector because many emissions come from there, but also the building sector, agriculture. Our plan does not, at this point, is only about mitigation. It's not about adaptation. I think the plans in the Paris Agreement are also about adaptation. And here what we do is we have set out a long-term vision for 2050. And we wanted to have clearer measures and goals for 2030. There was intensive consultation going on last week. And I have not seen the final version of the plan that I hope our minister will bring to Paris next week. So I cannot say exactly what it looks like. And then I just wanted to add, there was one question on just the importance of having the multi-level, the vertical integration, the multi-level coordination and cooperation. Well, the need for that is obvious. In many, it's also a question of the national constitution, of course, and of national culture. So the same process for consultation might not be good in every country, but I think it would be very good to draw up best practices on these consultation processes and see what works and what doesn't work, and then to take it forward and consult with other countries and maybe develop guidelines for this would be one idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is really, in a sense, what has been also under discussion at the EU level now in the new governance system. Of course, then, as you said, it's really up to the national governments, even if there is guidance of how much and how seriously they also want to collaborate together with cities, for example. And this is, of course, an issue that we've been trying to raise and not only with cities, but as we discussed, the whole, all the levels of government. But I think there are still improvements to be made if we look at the EU as a whole. You had a question.
Yes. This is regarding the fossil-free welfare state, Sweden. I'm from Denmark, and so I'm very curious to hear at what year are you planning to get there? Have you decided that? And how do you get rid of the last fossil in your system, of the last carbon? And I'm specifically thinking about transportation, because that's a really difficult part we're struggling with when we're working on this in Greater Copenhagen, where we are working on a serious green transition too. So could you help inspire us on that, and do we need some help from other European countries and the European Union in making the transition to e-mobility?
I didn't really get the last part of your question. I heard you asking about the time schedule, at what year, and we decided that was the first part, right? Yeah.
And then in the transport sector, how do you get rid of carbon? Are you
What's the agenda for?
combustion engines?
No, not yet. That might be. Also, we have heard about those banning initiatives, but we don't have such an initiative yet. And the timetable is fossil-free by the year 2030, 45. Sorry. So that's the agenda. And we know. I would like to comment also on the. We know it's a very revolutionary agenda. And that's why it's so important to talk about the fossil-free welfare state, because we know we need to do this while at the same time maintaining good economic development. And we know there will be, in like many transitions in society, there will be people and industries and business and so on. Some will be, and some regions will be losers and some will be winners. But we know that at the end we will all be winners. But therefore you need this welfare state to also have a welfare system to take care of the social dimensions of this transition while doing it. So that's very important. That's not that's not just anything that you put on the end. It's really a fossil-free welfare state that we are wanting to build.
And you wanted to react?
Yeah, I'm saying in Malmö we're working a lot with transport and changing from focus on the car to the public transport, biking, and pedestrian area. And with the help from the government now, we're getting money to make even more bicycle lanes. And we're trying right now to change our bus fleet. We're going to change half of it between 17 and 18. Eight buses will be changed, and most of them will be running on electricity due to the sponsoring from the government. They gave us some money so we can invest more in that, and then we're seeking money from EU as well, so it get even better. So together with government, you can do so much more.
Yeah, and of course, if there would be a representative of European Union here, then they would, from the Commission, they would say, yes, we want to decarbonize all the other sectors, and the transport sector is the most difficult one. So there was likely still to be some fossil fuels in 2050, but all the other sectors should be pretty much decarbonized. That's in the plans of the EU planning. Any reactions still from the panel before I will get to the end of the event? Yes, Mr. Walter.
I want to say a few words. There was a question about how the cooperation between the different levels work, and so I want to say at one thing. Our city is in a region where we produce on a very high level CO2. So we have a lot of production from energy from based on coal. So we have around about 16 tons per person in our region. In Germany, it's 8 tons, and I think in India it's only 1. And so we have a long way to take to come to a carbon-free region. And there's a second thing I want to notice. There's a decision must be made by the German government to get out of the brown coal, especially as well as in the black coal. The second thing, we need. I think we have to prohibit cars with fuel-based motors in our cities very soon. And this is in a country where the car industry is on a high level. A lot of people are working in the industry, as well in Cologne as well. We have 20,000 workers in a Ford company working, and they're building cars there. And it's very hard way to take very hard discussions in the society about those issues. And the last thing I would like to add, we need financial support by the invest to enlarge our public transport system in the cities, but as well as in the region too. Thank you.
Thank you. As we are almost, well, actually it's now 8 o'clock. So I would like to thank you all the panelists, and would like to give the last word to Andre to say some final words, to send a message from Minister Karol Diesbach, the minister from Luxembourg, who had a very big role, as you all know, in the negotiations of the Paris Agreement, as Luxembourg had the EU Council presidency at the time. Unfortunately, she's not here yet because she's only coming, but maybe Andre could say some messages on her behalf at the end of the event. Thank you.
Yes, maybe your hint that we hold the presidency is a good one, because we could only be successful as we were because we did it in a team at all our levels. So we were a team in the ministry, but there was a team amongst European ministers, and there was a team all over the negotiations in Paris. And this brings me a lot towards we need to develop. I think we need to create enabling environments that at local level actors collaborate together with all other levels. And I think so. With what is very important is having everyone on board, and also having and creating environments that make the local level act. Because I think we are now not anymore at a negotiating level, we are now at an acting level, and I think that's tricky. We need the transition to happen, and I think also we need a transition in the transport sector, and I think we need additional steer also from the European Commission if we stick to Europe, but I think we should not only focus towards Europe. I think the transport systems that we have now in place are not manageable anymore if we want to save climate, and also if we want to have clean air. I think there's a need for transition, and some of the panelists have already described how this could go on, but we need to go further with this, and I think this is also a business case, and we need to make very clear that that when we want to have climate change actions taking place, that these needed to be business cases, and these can be business cases if all actors are on board. So cities, companies, whatever level. I think the colleague from California has left right now, but they have put in place some very innovative concepts, and I think the most innovative electric car comes from this very region. So I think it's time for change, and it's time for making the change a business case, and I think that's basically what I wanted to bring as a message, and I think the local actors are amongst those that are really needed, because I think it's when Paris was a success, and when we want Paris remaining a success, we need all the actors being involved, and definitely also non-state actors.
Thank you. So acting together now. Thank you for the speakers and all the audience who sticked until the end of the day and are still here with us. So please come and talk to us if you still have any questions or you want to continue the debate. Thank you.